Oh, you lead, always for the one. Can we turn up? Can we turn up? Can we turn up? Can we turn up? Hey. He really, really moves up. That's what it says. I know he loves me. I know he cares. Whenever I call, he always is right there. In times of trouble, he is my help. Yeah, I know no fear. I know he'll be right there. Hey, he really does what he says he will do. My God really moves. Oh, hey, why would I doubt when he always comes through? My God really moves. Oh, he really, really moves. Oh, come on, sing the verse, y'all. I know he loves me. I know he cares. Whenever.
This is TouchLink. TouchLink is a 501c3 non-profit organization that supports victims and survivors of domestic violence, and just in collaboration with what is happening nationally, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and because of that, TouchLink has put together a power-packed program, where we encourage victims to talk, to speak, and also to provide our community with different resources. Today is going to be great because I have here my wonderful sister Faith. Faith Oluwadare. She's going to be talking about her experience. Now she's a survivor while she was going through. Faith is a resilient entrepreneur. She's a resilient entrepreneur, a survivor. She's an advocate. She has, I'm telling you, a lot of organizations. Apart from non-profit organization, she also has her own business, and she started this while going through what she went through. So she's going to take us to how she survived, how she navigated her life through all this journey, and how she is who she is today, fulfilling purpose, uplifting others. She's going to take us through that story. But pending the time that I bring her on, I'm going to allow us to just hear a little clip about TouchLink and our program.
10 years.
That's how long it's been since TouchLink embarked on a mission to help bring victims of domestic violence
Into a place of hope, strength, dignity, and closure.
10 years.
How can we celebrate when there's still so much work to be done?
At least there's more visibility now, there's more information, people know what to do, and many people are being vocal about it. And kudos to the work of agencies like TouchLink and other advocates.
Domestic violence transfers trauma from the abuser to the abused and turns children into casualties of war.
In 2014, Oluwadare Afodele, a survivor of domestic abuse, decided to do something about the violence that she thought she'd left behind.
She started TouchLink, a nonprofit organization founded in New Jersey.
TouchLink works every day to support, empower, and uplift victims of domestic violence and their children.
For 10 years, TouchLink has guided individuals and families in need toward available resources in the community.
Through education,
Advocacy,
workshops,
community outreaches,
rental and utility assistance,
personalized counseling,
legal support,
holiday giveaways,
and the annual Domestic Violence Awareness Walk.
TouchLink continues to extend a hand of love to turn victims into survivors.
TouchLink answers the call whenever that emergency hotline phone rings.
It's time to rise!
TouchLink has brought smiles to faces, partnered with local shelters and agencies, empowered the disconnected, and directly served more than 500 survivors since inception.
Thousands have been reached through support sessions, phone calls, text messages, and on social media.
I'm most proud of TouchLink signature events, especially our monthly support sessions to help the victims and survivors of domestic violence. Most proud of the impact that we've made on these men and women, especially the women, seeing them glowing. Especially when I see the before and after.
Yes, There is a reason to celebrate, even though there is still much to do.
TouchLink will celebrate, knowing you're watching this video today with your heart in the right place, as we join hands to set up a transitional home in New Jersey for victims of domestic abuse.
This fully furnished, healthy living halfway house will be a starting place and a lifeline for victims as they embark on the road to rebuild their lives.
It will prepare them for permanent housing and financial stability.
It will be a first safe step into a larger society where they can live without fear.
Thank you for playing your part in this life-saving work to bring victims of domestic violence and their families to a place of hope, strength, dignity, and closure.
Please join us to build Latai Safe Home.
TouchLink, touching lives, restoring hope.
I really appreciate everybody taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of this session. It's going to be powerful. But I need everybody, please do me a favor, share the link with your friends, with your community. Faith is ready, I am ready. As we say that the theme actually for our awareness this year is step out of shame into purpose. And there's no way we can step out of shame into purpose alone. It's a communal effort. So I want to please, beg you, implore you, help us spread the word by sharing the link. You can share it on your social media. You can tell a friend to tell a friend to join. Faith started while she was in pain. How she balances all this to turn all her pain, her shame into purpose. There's no shame anymore. Hallelujah, praise God. Amen. That there's no shame anymore. She's now a thriving person. She's thriving even in her business. She's thriving in her marriage. So how did she put all this together? We're going to be going into some questions, but before I even ask questions, Faith Oluwadare, I really appreciate that you are doing this, for touch, not just for Touchling, but for the entire community to hear your story. Can you please introduce yourself to the community?
Thank you. I really appreciate everything that you're doing for this purpose. When I was going through my situation, I didn't even think there was anything like this that was accessible in my community. So just thank you for your work and your dedication. My name is Faith Oluwadare, also known as Ahi. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am currently a wife, thank God, to an amazing husband. I have 3 children, 1 from my ex-husband and 2 from my amazing husband. I am a business owner. I am the owner of a thriving restaurant called House 157. I also have a wedding designing company where we do luxury weddings, and I'm a real estate agent as well. I'm also an investor.
Awesome. Wow.
Yes. And I have
4 different businesses.
And I have a business consulting firm that I help other businesses learn business mindsets and business fundamentals.
Okay. Awesome. Can we just give God a round of applause? Let's bless God for Faith's life. But before we even go further, I want us to unpack all this. This is you now. But let's unpack to 20 years ago or 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
10 years. Let's unpack and go back to 10 years ago. Okay. So you met this handsome, beautiful, you thought, right?
I thought, yes.
Good guy. So what happened?
So I would start by saying I was the respectful child that did what I was supposed to do, right? I went to do my first degree, got my first degree. I got my second, and I'm Nigerian, so customary is at a certain age, after you've done your schooling, you get married. That's just kind of what we do, right? So through a family friend, I was introduced to who's now my ex-husband. He was currently in Nigeria, and I was here. And I love my parents dearly, so of course, what mommy says is usually right. What they recommend is usually right. So I hadn't been to Nigeria in, I think, like 16 years at that time. So, because I grew up here, so I ended up going back home. We met, and before we were speaking before I went, so I did like him. I wasn't forced.
So mom introduced this
Yes,
guy?
yes, through a friend, and I wasn't forced into the marriage at all. I went in there with my own two eyes, and the year later I went and I got married. So 2023 of August, I went to Nigeria and we did the wedding. And I was very in love. Again, it was not an arranged marriage. I knew what I was doing. So I went in, but he did play the perfect person, right? He was the perfect gentleman.
So he had the words.
Oh my God. I mean, he's handsome. He's a pharmacist. Even back home, he worked for a very big company. So yeah, he had all the right attributes for a husband. And I came back a few days after the wedding, and by the time I knew, 3 weeks in, I was pregnant. So I got pregnant on my wedding night in Nigeria, and he came November of that same year. And within days of him being here, it felt like I was married to someone that I didn't even know. Within days is when I got my first slap.
Okay. Before the slap, was there any red flag? Was there any verbal abuse? No,
there were signs in the sense of how he treated other people.
Okay.
I remember coming to my parents' home in Nigeria, and the way he would speak to our house help, the way he would speak to like the person that handles the gate. They didn't have, access to house help and things like that. So I didn't see when I went to his house, but he just made other people feel very little and low, and I didn't like it. So he never did it to me, but the way he treated other people, I questioned that. Like, this is not the person that I know. So in that sense, yes. And other signs, I had dreams. I had dreams that eventually that eventually manifested the same way. And I remember going to my mom and saying, this dream that I had, it's like an opposite person before we even got married. Before we got married, I had dreams where he was in a dorm room with me, and we met I remember like it was yesterday because it was almost like 11 years ago. We met in the hallway of the campus dorm room, and we hugged, and he turns away, I turn away, and the last goodbye before you walk into your room, he went from light skin to dark skin. He went from low cut to hair, like braids, and so that confused me. Unfortunately, the faith that I have now with my relationship with God, it wasn't as strong back then, so I didn't even know how to process that. There are other dreams very similar too that I had, but I didn't know how to really like understand it. And now that I look back, it all is everything that eventually manifested. Yeah.
So he slapped you?
Yes. And I don't come from an abusive home. That's not something I've seen my mom and my dad do. So, but I do know, coming from our culture, I know abuse is not surprise, unfortunately. And I wanted to protect my home. So I didn't say anything to anybody. I remember weeks or months in where like I think I was making soup, and his mother's a caterer, and he just said, "You're doing it wrong." And before I knew it, I was being choked on a bed. Yes. And mind you, this entire time I'm pregnant.
Wow.
So I remember being choked, and leads to me eventually like invested in wearing turtlenecks a lot to hide like choke marks on my neck. At the time, I had a very thriving business. Thank God I've always had businesses. So I had a very, very thriving business.
So you were already in your business?
Yeah, I had another business. I was doing shipping, international shipping, containers and cars in and out of the country. I had my own warehouse and everything. This is at 25, so I was very young in business. But along the line of the abuse, me being quiet, not really saying anything to anybody, my business started falling apart. I would say I fell into depression, and I just couldn't hold on to the business anymore. By the end of my marriage, which was only 9 months, by the way.
9 months?
Yes, my marriage only lasted 9 months.
9 months, guys. 9 months.
Yes, and I remember, so this is November when he came. I remember the exact days, because they say when trauma happens, you tend to remember the day, the time, who was there, what you were wearing. I remember he came to a restaurant February 13th, And he came, I guess he didn't want me to leave the house, and I just needed to leave the house, and I ended up going to a restaurant with my friends and family, and he came in there in pajamas and just slammed his hand on the table in front of everyone and just say, "Come home right now, how dare you leave the house." That was the turning point where everyone found out what was happening, because again, I was very quiet. I was hiding it. And I remember going back home that day, and I was just so furious, and more because I was in shame. Like, I got used to being in the abuse, you know, the physical and the mental abuse, but that was shame on top of it now. So, and I was the girl that in the community was like, yeah, very respected, was the catch, and that was just so damaging to the reputation that I built prior to him even coming to this country. I remember going home and I just took all his clothes out of the closet and I threw, and I remember it was snowing. I put everything on the street, because that was me almost like having some kind of power. Like, okay, at this point, whatever I was protecting, everyone knows now.
Just like waiting to exist.
Yes. Oh my God, the way you just related that. I never thought about that. Yes. I remember my friend was at the house and she was just telling me to calm down. I took all his clothes and I threw everything out in the and on the street. And he ended up coming back with, he has some relative in the area, so he ended up coming back a couple of days later. They begged me into bringing him back, and I did. Fast forward to April. At this time, I'm 7 months pregnant, or 8 months, and we get into a heated argument. I actually left to Virginia to go stay with my brother because it got so bad that I just needed to like get out of the house. Mind you, I'm going through this, I'm pregnant. I needed to just leave. Unfortunately, while I was there, my brother that I stayed with, he lived in a high-rise building, and I just remember like waking up in the middle of the night and just saying like, it would just be so easy to just jump. I actually walked to the balcony. My family and friends that are on here probably never heard this. I remember walking to the balcony, just saying like, it would be easier to just like let it go. And I will never forget the moment when I felt my daughter, and it was like almost like reality kicked back in. I have something to live for. So I ended up coming back about a week later, and I only came back because he actually connived me. I was so young and not knowing back then. He had a way of like texting me with his Nigerian number, and he told me he moved back home. But unknowingly to me, I didn't know you can use any number on WhatsApp. So he started texting me through like a Nigerian number on WhatsApp. So I just said, oh, I told everybody that he left my house, he has moved back. I've come back, and I had a basement because he forced me to get a place to leave my parents' house before he comes. At the time I was staying with my parents, but before he came to America, he said, I don't want to live with your parents. We need our own place. So I had to go get a place. It had a basement.
He didn't even ask for your own opinion?
No, he's like, I'm not going to live with your mom and dad. And at that time, he started butting heads with my family. But we had already gotten married now. So my mom just trying to like manage for the sake of me, manage him, deal with the whole thing. So I remember being home that day, and I hear someone just like coming up the stairs. And I'm like, oh my God, is someone in my house? And here he is. Then he started cooking me beans and plantain. And at this time, I'm just like quiet. I don't know what to do. And he comes to me and just started spoon feeding the food in my. So it's almost like trying to like taunt me. Like, you thought I left, but I'm here. And I ended up staying in the house. A couple of days later, we got into another fight, as always. This time, so my secretary at the time was supposed to come pick me up from Maryland. And on her way to do one or two things, she got into a minor accident with my car. So I didn't have a car to leave the house, right? Normally what I would do is leave the house. We get into an argument, everything is crazy, he's doing this, I leave the house. I didn't have a car outside to leave. I called my sister and she's like, at this point, call the police. Call the police, call the police. So I called the police. And I think this would be like my third time calling the police, but every time they'll come, I just say, oh, he didn't do anything, just help me ask him to leave the house. I guess the law says when you guys are married, they can force him to leave the house. They can ask him, he never left. But this time I called and I was in panic, I was crying, And the Officer Love, I would never forget him. Officer Love asked him to leave the house. This time they almost like forced him to leave. Like, at this point, we've been coming here a couple of times now. This month alone, you have to leave. She's pregnant. Just leave the house for tonight. He leaves the house. Within 30 minutes, he comes back. And he's like, he said, it's April, so it's cold outside. I just want to get blankets. I said, okay, no problem. He comes into the house, gets blanket. He really gets blanket. But on his way out, I see him like do something to his hand. And he's really light. My daughter's light, just like her dad. And I'm like, what is he doing? Let's say this is around like 11 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, there's 3 police cars outside coming to arrest me. Yes.
Wow.
So I get locked up that night.
And you were pregnant?
I'm pregnant. I'm about 7-8 months pregnant. I get locked up. I'm in jail. I'm locked in. You know, they took my picture, mugshots. And mind you, all my years of being in this country, never even saw the front of a police station. Like, I didn't leave that. I was a preppy private school girl. Like, I didn't leave that lifestyle. So now I'm in a confirmed cell. And this is 7 months marriage. So apparently I developed claustrophobic dealing with him because of being locked in closets. It's either he locked me in, or I got so used to it that I would even go in there by myself and cry in there. I even remember a time where he pushed me down the tub, and he calls my sister. I don't know if she's on. He calls my sister and says, just in case your sister died, I'm not the one that killed her. She just threw herself in the tub. Or is it times when he would bend me over and rape me? I mean, this is just 8 months of marriage. I remember my mom even saying everything that I went through in my 8-9 months of marriage, she never experienced in her 30-something years. But Officer Love ends up taking an extra shift that night because, one, he was the officer that was coming to my house within those 2-3 times I called. So he knew what was going on, but because I never said that this man abused me, he can't really do anything. But I remember, God bless him, took an extra shift because I developed being claustrophobic. So he would help take me out of the cell every hour so I can get out and I'll go back in, get out and go back in. And it got to a point where he said, I've arranged you, I have to leave, I have to take you into the other side. I guess they take you in there, do all the paperwork, and then they take you to the main where there's other people in there. As God would have it, you know how you watch the movies, you think they're people. I was the only one in there. I was the only one, so I can't even imagine if there were other people there, what I would do, would I be abused? I was the only one in the main cell room, but I had to spend a night there.
Wow.
And I remember Officer Love coming back and saying,
let me just say to people here, see, this is what some of the things that we talk about in our session. This lady, Faith, did not even put any physical abuse on the guy.
No. But
this was staged. It was staged by the perpetrator. He caught himself and then called the police to say that she was the perpetrator, that she actually abused him. So I want you to follow us along as she tells her story. This is very important. Go ahead, Faith.
So much. I feel like I was reliving it all over.
Yeah. So you were in the cell?
Yeah. I remember Officer Love come up to me and said, you would not believe that your husband called and says, is she there now? And he says, yeah, we have her. I said, good, so I can go back home and sleep. Yes, so your pregnant wife is in jail. And then you're happy that you can go back home and sleep. The next day...
And this is the house that you bought?
Yes. My house, yes. And I remember sleeping on the bench that night. That's all they had in there was a bench. And I'm 8 months pregnant. But one thing I want to mention is I remember being in that cell, but where I didn't have Officer Love anymore. So I had to spend a night. And I was in there the entire night by myself. But when I tell you that became the most comfortable place I have ever been in my life.
Wow.
It felt like the hands of God was. I felt like Daniel in the lion's den.
Wow.
Till today, when I'm in church and and you want to find that peace, where a place where is the most peaceful, my mind always goes back
to the cell. Wow.
I didn't have to come out and like I didn't feel the need to go back and forth. I didn't panic in there. Nothing.
And that's the presence of
absolutely God. Nothing. Again, till today, this is almost 11 years. My mind still goes back to that very moment of just sleeping on a bench. And the next day, I guess they call it in the rain. I don't know. I had to go meet the judge, but my bail was only $50. Why? Because Officer Love spoke on my behalf. So he came to actually bail me out.
Wow.
He came to bail me out.
Thank God for angels on assignment.
And my sister was outside waiting for me, and she said, stay away from my sister. He was on one side of the street, I was on the other side. And I remember walking in, going...
You didn't file in for a restraining order?
Oh, it got worse than that. oh my goodness. 2 days later, I ended up in the hospital because I caught some respiratory infection from being in jail. So I remember my nose bleeding, everything, and so I ended up staying in the hospital for about a couple of days. I got released. By the time I got released, I think it was within like 7 days you have to go back to court. So by the time I go to court, and I'm thinking, I just have to go there and tell my story, and he also is there, and he starts crying. He says, Judge, I just came from Africa. This woman brought me here to beat me, to abuse me. She doesn't take care of me. She starves me to death. I have nobody here. The judge ordered me to leave my house for him.
Wow.
I was kicked out of my house.
Wow.
I remember going back there that same day and trying to pack some things, and he was outside, and he calls me and said, I will let you stay as long as you know who I am. Because if you're still here, I'm going to call the police to come and kick you out. So at this point, I started, because I don't have a malicious mind. I didn't know someone could be this malicious. So it was just so much going through my head. So I ended up moving out. I had to go find a place to stay. I started staying. I stayed with my sister for a little bit. Then I stayed with my mom. My mom had to rush back to America to come help me. And I ended up going back to court, but this time I know I'm too weak, I don't know how to lie, so I had to get a lawyer. Because I'm thinking this is just a husband and wife dispute. I didn't have to get a lawyer, I had to get a lawyer. I got a lawyer, and that's kind of how the whole chaos between then and till today is still happening. I filed a restraining order. They approved it for a little bit, but then his lies are always so great that the judge is always
narcissist.
Yes, the judge gets confused, and I become the bad person by the time we're done. And I had my daughter in May, so this happened in April. So May I gave birth, and from the day she was born till today, and I say today because I still have a court case. December 6th, 2024. I have to be in court in 2 months from now.
Well, why did it take that long?
I mean, no, we've been in court at least 3 times every year. It's between him calling diapers to my house randomly, saying that or my daughter's being sexually abused by my husband now, or he just she goes to stay with him. He lives in Texas now. She stays with him. Then let's say she's playing outside at his place, he'll call diapers. They'll come and start investigating my house till today. Myself and my husband did our wedding in Jamaica 2 years ago. I almost did not make it to my own wedding because he had her name sent to Homeland Security. By the time we were trying to get her passport, we couldn't get her passport. I mean, within 10 years of just different situations. My husband and my 2 boys had to leave to Jamaica, and me and Zion was here a day before. I almost didn't make it when my friends and family was waiting for me. I mean, there's just so many different things. Or is it when he kidnapped her from the parking lot where he was supposed to be having visitations, and I had to go follow a court. I mean, name it, it has happened within 10 years.
Wow.
Within 10 years. So we're currently in court right now. The issue now is I didn't even want child support from him because anything that means still dealing with him,
So
I
you
just didn't want to
filed
do.
for him, right?
I filed for him.
And so did he get qualified, certified as a pharmacist, or what happened?
Unfortunately, because I don't know how the system works, he was actually doing all of this to create some kind of documentation against me
For VAWA.
VAWA.
Violence against Violence Against Women's Act.
Yes.
Violence Against Women's
Yes.
Act. That's VAWA.
Yes, but it can also pertain to men if they have enough evidence. So he needed court to happen. He needed me to go to jail. I ended up finding a file in my computer because he just came. He didn't have a where he was actually keeping history, web history of him, like finding information, looking up information on how to get more evidence against me. When I finally had my daughter, I found out what he was doing. I think she was about like 6 months at this point. I started like communicating with United in the immigration. I sent them everything, and I think they gave him a hard time to get his papers, but he eventually still got it because he had all those courts. He had this. He had pictures.
All those pictures of the abuse.
He had pictures of abuse when he cut his hand and everything. Yeah.
So sometimes people just use the systemic.
Unfortunately, yes. Because that law is not obviously he
My
took advantage of the law.
My daughter and I one were the first beneficiary. Was the Clinton government that signed it into order. We were the first beneficiary. I believe it was finally approved in 1994.
Wow.
We were approved. We got our own residency in 1996.
Wow.
So we are about the first set of people that got qualified and approved for that.
Wow.
Can you imagine how people now manipulate the system?
Yes. So we're in court right now because from the beginning the judge made him do child support, and at the time he was barely working, but now he is a pharmacist in the United States. And now he's required to pay child support, and he's taking me back to court right now because he has sent the judge all of my businesses. I mean, he's remarried, he has 2 additional girls, but when I tell you, I don't even know what his wife looks like. I don't know anything about his life, but he knows my every move, every single thing. So he sent the judge House 150, my restaurant, he sent them my businesses, he sent everything to try to not pay child support at all. And I keep telling my lawyer, it's okay, but the law says child support does not belong to me. It belongs to my daughter. So I have to keep going back. I'm paying. There was a time where I had to, I had so many lawyers within the past 10 years. I've spent so much money on this case, so that's where we are right now.
Well, I want to tell you also, you and I will talk after the session. We'll try to work some things out because you don't have to be alone, especially when you are going through that system. And also, you can always get an invest, even though you don't want to follow after him, because people like that, they are narcissistic in behavior, and they might continue throughout your lifetime. So we are going to put a stop to it. One of the things that we can do is to get an investigative journalist or somebody like an investigator, a private investigator that can help, so we can work things out. That way we can put a stop, because he knows you won't come after him, but all his goal is to see that you don't rise.
Yes.
But you've risen through all that.
Yes.
So, I mean, your story is so, I thank God, because you are not your story. You are not even what you have been through. So what I want you to also tell our audience is, how did you balance? How were you everything? 10 years of, even though the marriage has ended, the guy relocated, but you're still
in it,
getting the aftermath, the effect. I still coming back to throw some shots at you.
Yes.
But how did you navigate all that to have 4 different businesses, successful, award-winning restaurants, successful businesses? How did you navigate that? And I want you to also speak to the respite, the people that helped you, and also I believe the church, the faith that helped you.
Yes. When I was going through all of this, I didn't have like what's happening today as a plan. If anyone would tell me that I would have even anything, to even have a husband I hated men. Oh my God, I was so bitter. I was so angry. I remember when my husband came into my life, I actually met him at the new church I started going to, because the old church, really, I started taking my husband there, but it became so shameful. I didn't even want to go back there, and the church didn't do anything. I just could not see myself going back there.
So church did not do anything while you guys were going?
No, they didn't do anything to me. I didn't tell anyone. So even, I didn't tell them, so, and then when everything started like unfolding so fast, I stopped going, so I didn't really say anything to anyone. It was really more family and friends that were heavily involved. And I would say what got me out of it is when I decided I was just going to let go of what I thought I knew and just let God handle it. And I say that because I was such in a dark place. It was so dark, but one person that I was responsible for was my child. Like, I knew that if I didn't even want to do anything for myself, I had to do something for her. Another reason I left is because I didn't see abuse in my home, so I didn't want her to grow up, seeing abuse. And I just knew I had to do everything to protect her. I ended up losing my business because I couldn't keep up with it. I had to dust off my degrees and go for, I did a training, and my first interview, I got the job as a clinical research associate. My second interview for another company, I got the job, and I was able to be financially okay to take care of my daughter. Then I started going to a new church where I met my husband of today. What I did was I immersed myself in my spiritual life. I really did. And one thing I do still to today, I journaled. And I was actually, before today, I have my journal right there, it's on the table. I started reading those things that I wrote back in 2014. Because the reason why is life will still happen. Like, I still have so much living to do, and I never want to forget that feeling. There's a song that says, I never want to forget how I feel right now. Because you're able to look back and see where you come from. So by the time trials and tribulations are happening, you know where God has taken you from. So if I was able to like get out of that situation, I don't think there's anything God would not take me out of. So I always go back to that feeling, because it's like I look back now and see my life today and say, if I was able to get out of that, I can get out of anything. So when business trials come, I'm running a business, running a restaurant, you can imagine the responsibilities. But
you also left your mainstream job, earning 6 figures, so carrying all these enterprises out. Because many people, they won't be able to handle it. They will be depressed, and like you said, being suicidal and all that, and just allow the darkness to overshadow them.
Yes. But again, I always go back to that feeling and knowing that I could get out of that. So one business after the other, like, I have no fear in me because I have God with me.
Amen.
So that's kind of how I'm able to like do everything that I'm doing.
So your relationship with God really helped?
Oh, it's the only thing that helped. And I have to give credit to the friends that stayed around, because people didn't even understand me then, because I lost myself too. Like, I wasn't even who they knew me to be. So I became a whole different person. My family, my parents, my siblings, my brothers, my sisters, my aunties, like, everyone really rallied up around me and just like, whatever you need. So definitely having a village, and I know there's a lot of people that don't have a village. I know there are people that's the opposite, where they will actually come to this country or from anywhere, and the person they meet here is the abuser and they don't have anyone. I think it's very important to get into a community village. My village is what helped me. Absolutely.
Thank God for the village.
Thank God.
And do you have like mentors also in your life?
My mom is a very strong person, so she's definitely my mentor. Like, her sisters too are very strong, and as right now, I need, because I feel like God is taking me to a whole nother level, and there's so much to do. I personally just make sure I surround myself with positivity. Yeah, like I take from positivity and I give right back. So my friends, my family, the people that I place in my life and I allow in my space, I just don't do negativity, because again, our feelings are just like this. It will always take me back to depression. It will always take me back to how I felt, and I don't like feeling that way. So any kind of relationship that just looks like it's going to bring negativity to my life, it takes me back to my relationship with my ex-husband that I'm still dealing with right now. So I think I have enough of that, where it's like anyone in my life, it just has to be, faith has to be strong, so we can, draw from each other, and then just always positivity. That's it.
Yeah, I really thank you for your story and for sharing it, because we do have a lot of people that are not able to get out of darkness.
Yes.
Plus, with you, not only you can't even say something that has happened to me. It's like a journey.
It is a journey.
The pain is still on your
Absolutely.
journey. Even while dealing with that pain, you had your children.
Yeah.
You remarried. You had more children, and then you have more than 4 different enterprises. I can't even overemphasize that. And still, you have your faith. But we said one thing that kept you going was your faith in Christ. Can you talk to somebody? Can you just look to the camera and talk to somebody? Because I'm sure we have more than 1 or 2 people out there that's at the end of their rope. They don't even see that light, and they are not expecting to see light at the end of the tunnel. What do you have to say to such people?
First, I will say it's not your fault, because we become so victimized and shameful that first, you don't want to say anything to anyone, because there may be 1 or 2 people that warned you, that tried to say, oh, don't marry this person. It is not your fault. It is truly not your fault. And that's one thing. Whatever you do, just know it is not your fault. Secondly, find something to live for. And when I say living, sometimes you're alive, but you're not living. And I think that's one thing I was very intentional about, is making sure that I was living. Because if I'm not pouring into myself and bringing joy into my life, there was absolutely no way I can pour into my child. My focus was always my child, but I didn't have to go into business. Business is for me. I'm pouring into my life. And then when I pour into myself, I can eventually be happy and be the person that my daughter wants me to be. So 1, it is not your fault. 2, make sure you are finding something that will bring you joy, that you can escape from. Because reality is reality. Yes, you need an escape route. And everything is mental. So find something that will make you happy within 24 hours in a day. Because especially when you have a child with your abuser, there's nothing you can do.
They'll keep coming back.
They will keep coming back. And thirdly, don't try to change them. Just don't. Focus on your happiness. Focus on what you need to do to get yourself in a better place. Don't try to, and I think we always try to make excuses for them too. Do not make excuses for them. That person is not your responsibility.
Can I ask you another question? Did you get any type of therapy during the period? And did you get any for your child, also for your daughter?
So funny you said that. So my second pregnancy, which was 3 years after this happened, and in a better place, and I thought I was in a better place, but because the abuse happened while I was pregnant, I ended up developing situational depression trauma where I didn't even realize
it was traumatic.
It was traumatic. So my second pregnancy. I remember going to my pastor and he would tell me, oh, somewhere in Africa is doing but because the whole 9 months I couldn't sleep. I slept on, like, we have a balcony. I sleep on a balcony outside throughout the entire night. I would go into the shower and I would stay in there for like hours crying. I would lock myself in the closet crying. I would just wake up and just not get out of bed for 24 hours. And I didn't understand why. I'm like, I'm in a better place. I'm with the man that I love. I have a beautiful daughter. I have a nice, my life is good, but I didn't. So that happened. And then my third pregnancy with my son, my third child, it happened again. So that's when I went to go see a therapist. And I said, okay, what is going on? And by the time I downloaded everything, she said, it's trauma.
It's trauma.
Your body was pregnant when the abuse happened. So every time you're pregnant, your body goes back into that same trauma.
Wow.
So I could be good, I'm in a better place, but that it has done some unfortunate damage to my mental that I don't think about him at all. But in pregnancy, everything comes back. Everything comes back.
After the therapy, you got to a better place. Right?
I'm still going through it. You can't really get out of that, because another thing too is because it was my partner, there's things now that it comes up in my husband now where it's like, this may not be his intention of whatever he said, but my mind goes back to that, like, oh no, you're against me, oh no, you're trying to abuse me, but he may not be. It could just be relational quarrel, you know. But I don't think it's something that can eventually like leave your body truly, especially not, at least not for me. But my walk in Christ definitely helps.
Coping mechanism
definitely helps for sure, because if I had to measure the two, it was definitely more mental trauma that I went to, physical too, but till today he can just, I have blocked him on my, we don't communicate. I haven't spoken to him in 6 years, but we only communicate via text message and email, only because he does give visitation. She stays with him for about 6 weeks in the summertime, but we do not communicate over the phone because he can just, trauma till today. He finds nasty things to say to me, disturbing words to say about my children. He has say things about my 2 boys, you know. So as long as this person is in your life and they're still the way they are, I don't even try to like say, oh, I'm gonna eventually like change him and change the way he thinks. I just make sure I'm good.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought that up is because I want the audience, people listening to us, to understand the impact of therapy. Therapy is very effective, but it's very impactful. But much more than that, also, one of the things, highlights of her life that she mentioned was she had a relationship with God.
Was my therapy.
That was her therapy. But much more than that, she also has, of course, the physical therapy that she got, apart from having a relationship with God. So that you can walk them together. Both of them can walk hand in hand. But much more than that, it's a journey. And it gets better every time, especially when you recognize your coping skills and also try to engage, your community, foster all your effort into something meaningful. Like she also started, can you talk a little bit about your non-profit?
Yes.
And why you started that?
Yes. I started the non-profit about 6 years ago. And I started with a group of other women that also have like different stories to tell. And I felt like when I started that, it was my way therapy too, because it was an opportunity for me to even get out, to express. And we'll meet, I think like once a month, we'll go on live. We did like Facebook, Instagram, we'll go live, or women came on, and then we started doing activities for women. We had an in-person group session every so often, back to school for their children. I did it because it's called A Mother's Road to Zion.
Wow.
My daughter's name is Zion. So A Mother's Road to Zion, of course you can understand the meaning if you understand Zion, where it's like a house of David, a place of peace, a place of worship, a place with a serenity, so my road to that journey. And I feel every woman has a story, so it's called A Mother's Road to Zion. Your story, share your story. And it's also for any woman that has lost their way and lost themselves in any situation. So I needed to at least, I feel like God had blessed me so much. And even when I started, I didn't even have half of the things that I have now, but I knew the plan He had for me. And
good,
yes, and I just knew that he didn't take me out of that situation for me to keep it to myself. I needed to let other women know that this does not have to be your story.
I think the scripture put it very well.
Yes.
In 2 Corinthians, I believe, chapter 1 from verse 4, it says, God is God of all comfort.
Yes.
He comforts us in all our troubles with the same comfort that we have received.
Yes.
You know, you have received comfort of God, and then that is actually why TouchLink exists today. You know, TouchLink was birthed from my own personal experience and what I went through over 30 years ago. And why are we saying this? We are saying this, we foster everything, all the pain, the shame, we put it together, you know, by the help of God, of course, putting it together to help other people in the community. You know, that also helps. You know, you think you are helping other people, you are actually helping yourself. You are helping yourself to heal. And that is why, you know, TouchLink is still what it is today. And we are even going, you know, we are moving forward. Like you said, therapy also having that monthly. In TouchLink, we have monthly support session that gives everybody opportunity, apart from listening to, you know, encouraging, you know, session. You also have opportunity to express yourself, express what you are going through. You have a voice, you have opinion, and that really goes a long way. You can't say, oh, you've had enough therapy.
No
you can't say you've had enough therapy, or you don't need it, and then you go back into your seclusion, you go back into your isolation. Let me tell you, in the place of isolation where you're secluded, that's where the enemy thrives. It becomes a place of darkness. Before you know it, you begin to entertain negative thoughts. You begin to reconsider it. You begin to blame yourself. You begin to engage yourself in, you know, lies and tons of lies of the enemy. So that is why it is so important that we engage our community. We foster all of our pain. Even if you think you don't have the time, try to look for what you can do for other people. Try to look for, you know, organization that you can join, like TouchLink, like your organization, you know, that you can express yourself, you can volunteer. Actually, that takes you a long way and helps a lot. I don't know if anybody have a question. We're going to turn it open now. We only have about 10 minutes to go, so we will just leave it open. If anybody have questions, we can take some questions. Do you have questions for Faith? If you have any question for me.
People are asking about FSA or insurance. How does insurance cover therapy and how to get a therapist? We've already told them in the chat, and you've also just mentioned it.
Okay.
Someone said,
and if anybody still have question about how to get your insurance to cover this, please reach out to info@touchlink. Send me email, info@touchlink.org, info@touchlink.org, because TouchLink also offers some support and assistance where your insurance does not cover some of those therapy.
And someone said, why do men feel insecure with an empowered woman?
Why do men feel insecure with empowered women?
Yeah, you know, that's a very good question. Because before he came, I mean, he knew what I was doing, but I remember when he got here, he was so determined to make sure that he even mentioned it, like, I'm going to embarrass you in this New Jersey, you're going to lose your business. And he actually thought he was going to come and just go straight into pharmacy. Of course, there's rules and regulations. You have to take the test. And he was not ready to do that. I don't think men are empowered, ashamed, or what is it, like, by empowered. I think weak men and insecure men. I don't think it's all men, because when you're secure in yourself and you know who you are, an empowered woman is a plus to your life.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's an advantage to have an empowered woman. It's just men that are just very insecure within themselves.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we also emphasize in domestic violence is power and control. See, in any relationship where one person exerts more power than the other, it becomes toxic.
Right.
You know, the relationship becomes toxic, you know. So it's always good that at least everybody have a buy-in, you know, everybody, there's communication, and then you at least, or both of you agree, even disagree to agree, you know, meet each other halfway. But where it becomes, I mean, we are supposed to be helpmates for each other, you know, it's not supposed to be like this, but enemy made it so. But also, one of the things I want to say, because this also affects women, so women also feel insecure when they see that the husband is doing work and doing, we've seen a lot, some men that actually that are being abused as a result of, women are not the abuser as a result of their men being empowered. That insecurity stems from a brokenness of our relationship with God, a brokenness from our relationship with God. So I will encourage everybody. My philosophy for life is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Every other thing will be added. And it's a journey. Seeking God is a daily thing. It's not just Sunday thing. It's a daily thing. You have a question?
Yeah, someone said, can you provide strategies on how to deal with abuser when you share custody with them? If you only communicate via email, how do you approach their lies and constant texting?
So how do I deal with like communicating with him on a daily, you're saying?
Yeah.
She's asking
Is
so
that-
I can talk.
Yeah.
You can.
What strategies do you have to deal with an abuser when you share custody with them? That's question number one. And then they said, part B is, if you can only communicate via email, how do you approach their lies and constant texting?
Okay. It got to a point for me. I mean, the abuse started when she was a baby. So we've never had a point in our lifetime at all when we were able to co-parent properly. I always did what I needed to do for my daughter. And because I needed to make sure that I was okay mentally, I did not really communicate with him, only if I had to, and whatever the judge asked me to do. So, but now she's at a point where she has a relationship with her father and she can communicate with him. So she communicates with him. But unfortunately for him, he misses out on those other little things that a mom will share with a dad, and we'll talk about this child, because I need to make sure my sanity is okay. Within 5 seconds on the phone with him, it's already damaging.
Yeah.
So it never gets anywhere. So I text him like, unfortunately, you become a part-time parent, because it's whatever this child decides to share with you is the only thing you know about her. Until you get to a point where you can respect me as a person, I have to make sure I'm protecting myself and my sanity.
Yeah.
And then whatever she should try to share with you, and thank God for my situation, she has a father figure in her life where she has the daddy situation. She calls him daddy, and they have a beautiful relationship. They're even closer than I am to her. They have a beautiful relationship, so she doesn't misses out on that sense. But he misses out because he hasn't gotten to the point of maturity where he can communicate with me effectively as a person to even know anything that I can voluntarily share with him as a parent.
I think yours is an extreme, really, and I'm sure you are really doing a good job. But one of the things I just want to also encourage you to do is to never talk down about him,
Never.
in front of your daughter, or let your daughter, because your daughter will know.
Yes.
Over time, she will pick who, who is lying.
So funny you said that. She didn't know anything until she started going over there with him, and then she comes back with questions for me, and then I tell her, Zion, you're not in a position or age to understand what happened. When you get to an age where I think you can understand, our court documents is this high. I said I will shift it to you, and then you can make your own decisions and judgment based on what you read.
That is good, because the mistake that some of us make is to start now abusing the father, calling him names, and then that, because we don't realize that this also directly affects the child or the children involved.
Yes.
They need to be cared for. They need to be catered to. They even blame themselves that maybe if you were not pregnant, maybe it won't be like this. Maybe I'm the one in between. So that alone, also, I always recommend that you have therapy for the kids. Very important. The earlier you introduce it, the better for them. And also, don't lie to them. Walk them through the journey. Then create that atmosphere of love. You were asking. Somebody was asking about the strategy.
Yeah, we have one last question.
I don't know. I don't think I've finished answering the question about the strategy. One of the strategy, like I said, our case is really extreme, but really typical. I've seen a lot of homes or relationship where they can still co-parent their kids, in a normal way. Where you see abnormality, make sure that you take a picture of your child when your child is visiting the father, and then when they come back, take the picture again. Make sure everything is on record. Journal everything, and also make sure that you are not, talking negatively about the father. create that positive atmosphere, because it will directly affect your child or the child that you are trying to raise. She will have that animosity generally about men. So that you need to do. And then the rest of the communication, make sure that it's on the text and email. If you don't, I will even say, even if it's cordial and everything, talk less. Talk less. Make sure your communication is less conversational. Put everything in writing, just so, because you don't know what's on their heart. You don't know what they will turn out to do. Yes, last question.
Last question. What does mental health truly mean to you, and how do you stay motivated daily?
Okay. Mental health means to me, first, and this is why I have to stress this, like, so strong. For me, my faith with God, it's what controls everything for me. It really is. Like, I had to really just immerse myself and just give up everything. Anything that I thought I knew, I realized I didn't know. I thought I had a relationship with God. It came to realize that I didn't have a relationship with God the way He wanted me to. So
you are now being true to yourself.
Yes, I'm not being true to myself, but now I'm not just walking based on sight. I'm walking based on faith. Yeah, like, I go to Him in prayer. I go to Him in any decision that I want to make, because He showed me the signs, what I said earlier, in my dreams. And at the time, I could have just went to Him and say, what does this mean? And I didn't. So now, and I think it's very important for everyone to know how God speaks to you. Like, everyone, He speaks to us differently, Yeah. For me, it's through my dreams. And now I had to learn that. So now if things look off, I just go to Him and pray, just to make sure it's not my worldly self that's making the decision. Yeah. So mental health means, like, making sure that I have a spiritual relationship, and that's how I'm able to, exercise my mental health, and making sure that people around me are really on, like, the same, like, spiritual path, really. Because you can easily be influenced and not know that you're being influenced.
Just to add to that, one of the things that's also good about mental health is self-care.
Yes.
Self-care helps our mental health. You don't have to be rich in order to get yourself a self-care. What is self-care? Taking care of yourself. Identifying who you are really, who God says you are, not just your emotions, not just who somebody is calling you to be, right? Really taking some time to take care of you, taking a walk. Don't stay in the place of dark, taking a walk outside, pampering yourself, just spending some time on yourself. Even if you have no, you don't need to have money before you take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself physically also helps a lot. I always tell people, you don't need to be rich. Open up the shower, go inside the shower and run. I'm sorry, get off your wig or untie your hair. Let that water run from your head to toe. By the time you spend 30 minutes, 1 hour in the shower, God talks to you. Calmness comes. You are able to reach, you are able to take care of yourself. So taking care of yourself is very important. And if you have some little change, you can travel, staycation, even inside the town, try to find out some attraction, maybe by the beach. It might even just, if you like shopping, even if you don't buy anything, you don't have money, I'm not saying go out and spend, but just do whatever you feel, you feel comfortable doing. Recognize your coping skills and practice it, do it. But more importantly, I cannot emphasize having a solid relationship with God. Find a Bible-believing church and go. That helps you to develop your relationship with God. It's a daily journey. You must open up with God. You must allow God, Holy Spirit, to minister to you. But thank you so much, Faith. We are really out of time, but it's been powerful, powerful story. This is not your story. This is your journey. And I really want to continue to say we are here. TouchLink is here to support you. Anyway, all the way. Well, now we have a relationship, right? All the way. And anybody out there, TouchLink, if you visit our website, there are several things that we do apart from counseling. We are that shoulder for you. We can go to court with you. We can prepare you for what to expect at court. And some of these services that we don't even have, we can always work with you, harness whatever is in the community to make sure that you benefit from those services. So thank you so much. Again, this is just one of 4 other sessions that we have. So I want to encourage everybody, don't forget we have our work coming up October 26th. I'm sure Glory is going to take us through some of our some of our October activities. Go ahead, Glory, and just tell everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this special session with Faith. We know that you've been blessed. You've learned so many powerful things about her story. And thank you so much, Faith, for joining us today and bravely sharing your story. So I'm just going to quickly walk us through before we close on some of the activities that we still have coming up in October. So the QR code you see on your screen right now, you can take out your phone, you can scan it, and it'll take you to our registration page. And on that page, you can register for a closing rally that's happening on October 26th at 10 a.m. in person at the Whitbread City Hall. On that page, you can also make a donation of your desired amount. And then on that same page, you can become an official sponsor of our closing rally and our just October programs in general. And we want to also highlight some upcoming events. We have Procano, who's going to be joining us this Thursday, October 17th. She's going to be telling us how to reignite the fire within. And this is for anyone who is an abuse victim and has experienced abuse in their life in various forms. But even if you're not an abuse victim and you've just gone through different traumatic events in your past, Pearl is going to walk us through how to reignite the fire within. If you've lost it, she's going to show you how to find it. Next, we'll also have Vimy Surti and Lois Kahagi, who are attorneys and legal advocates. They're going to join us to walk us through legal advocacy and counsel. And this is going to happen next Saturday, October 19th at 10 a.m. And so if you have any legal questions, please, we encourage you to join. They're going to give you space to talk about your specific legal issues if you want to present them, and they will walk you through advice, domestic violence related. And so we encourage you to join that. And then lastly, we have Nicole Sutton, who's going to join us to take us through domestic violence and public health. That'll be Thursday, October 24th at 9 p.m. So you don't want to miss that. We haven't really covered this aspect of domestic violence in relation to public health. And so we encourage you to join and come with your questions. And so once again, we want to encourage you to join us on October 26th for our closing rally against domestic violence. It's going to be happening at our Woodbridge Town Hall at 10 a.m. EDT. If you see the beautiful pictures on your screen and you want to be one of those that are part of it, you can come with your signs, come and get your Touchling t-shirts. And we want to encourage you to register so that when you arrive, we can quickly check you in. And so we're excited to see you all on Saturday, October 26th for our closing rally.
Thank you so much, Glory. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, again for joining. Thank you so much. God bless you. God keep you. He will make his face to shine upon you and continually to support you in all your endeavors. God bless you. Have a blessed weekend, everyone.
No.
Bye.